welcome to the NFL Abroad podcast, the podcast created by fans for the fans.
We're your hosts, Thomas and Callum, and you can find this podcast on all popular streaming platforms.
If you do enjoy this podcast, please feel free to drop a like, follow, and subscribe for more similar content in the future. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the podcast. So, on Thursday Night Football, the Washington Commanders host the Chicago Bears in what is a must-win game for both teams, really. The Chicago Bears are now 0-4, whereas the Commanders are 2-2, and they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. We've seen this week that there are rumours that Matt Eberflus is on the hot seat, and if he doesn't come out as a winner on this game, that he could be fired from his role as head coach for the Bears. Minnie, what do you think about that, and how do you see this panning out?
Yeah, it's a good point that you've made there. I think that there's obviously going to be a lot of pressure on him this week, and if he doesn't win this game, then yeah, it's probably his job's going to be up for debate. I guess you feel the same on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's Norton Ford this season. They went something like 3-13 a year ago, and there's just no sort of optimism around the camp that this is getting any better. Obviously, we've seen the defensive coordinators walked out already, and multiple players have voiced their frustrations with the coaching. So I think, yeah, they've got to change something in Chicago if they want to become a better team in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a couple of weeks ago that Justin Fields was actually, complaining about the coaching. I think it was like around week 2, and I put it down to Justin Fields, just a problem with himself and not the coaching. So maybe that's proved me wrong. Maybe it is a coaching issue as well at the moment.
Yeah, well, we saw last week, obviously, the Bears played the Broncos, and they shut off to a 28-7 lead, I think it was. 4 touchdowns for Justin Fields. He was playing very well at that point, and then obviously the play calling sort of changed, and a few issues here and there, and all of a sudden they've blown a 21-point lead, and the Broncos, who were one of the worst teams in the league, have come back to beat them 31-28. So you can't put that down to Fields, after he's just had a great 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, the team has thrown it away. So I think that has to be put on the coaching, really.
Yeah, it was actually a 28-point lead at halftime in favour of the Bears. It was a shock comeback for the Broncos. And I was watching this game and thinking to myself, can Justin Fields actually throw the ball? And he proved in the first half that he could. So he's not just using his legs at the moment. So I don't know, I'm just trying to find some positives for the Bears at the moment.
Yeah, I think that was a small glimmer of hope for them. Obviously, he had his first big game this season, over 335 yards. And we also saw DJ Moore get his first big game since becoming a Bear. Obviously, they traded a lot of draft compensation over to the Panthers for DJ Moore to be that number 1 receiver. And he's been complaining, but finally last week he did have a bit of a breakout game despite the loss. So there is small hope for the Bears. And I think this is it's again, they've got to win, really.
Yeah, it is. It's a must win. I imagine. Well, it's going to be a must. Obviously, it's a must win for both teams. But in terms of the Bears, like you said, Fields 355 yards. I think he picked up 4 touchdowns. DJ Moore as well. He continues to stand out for me. I think he's probably been their only standout player over the first couple of weeks, and he bettered himself as well last week. So it should be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, but I mean, right now, obviously, they're looking at the number 1 and number 2 pick in the draft. So the question is, do they actually want to try and turn this season around, or would Bears fans rather, write the season off, give us the first pick at least, if not the second pick as well? Obviously, that's from the Panthers. If I was a Bears fan, I think I'd be preferring to do the latter. Throw the season away, get Caleb Williams and another big prospect in the draft next season, and just go from there. But, well, I don't know if that's a possibility in reality.
No, I'm not sure. Bears fans, well, they've obviously paid a lot of money to go and watch the Bears this season. I imagine there's a lot of unhappy season ticket holders right now. To be fair, I can't see where wins are going to come from at the moment.
No, I completely agree. So, speaking of which, let's flip it onto the other side. Obviously, they're playing the Commanders this week, who looked impressive for most of the game last week against a very strong Eagles side. What did you see in that game, Minnie?
Yeah, I thought the team played a lot better. Well, obviously a lot better than they did against the Bills the week before. And you know what? I was actually really surprised that it were as close as it was. I mean, it went to overtime, and I think the Eagles won by a field goal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, touch. Yeah, a field goal. Yeah,
field goal. Yeah. But I was looking at them on that last drive, and I just thought, like, the sort of grit and determination that they showed, to get back into that game and take it to overtime. I think there was 0 seconds on the clock when Johan Dotson got the touchdown, and I were rooting for him. I was kind of hoping that they were going to win that game.
Yeah, I was 100%. I mean, I was watching it on Red Zone, and obviously, yeah, the clock hit 0, touchdown, Commanders, but then obviously you thought they would be carrying that momentum into overtime, but it just never really materialised from there. And obviously the field goal for the Eagles was enough for them to win that game, unfortunately. But will that give them more motivation and desire coming into this one?
I think it's got to give the confidence. I mean, they're going to be looking at this Bears team that's sat 0-4, as you said, and surely they've got to win this game.
Yeah, you think so, and you probably think they've got the weapons, especially on offense, to do that. I mean, obviously you've got Brian Robinson, who, yes, he had a quiet week last week, but he has been kind of a star player for them so far this season. And then obviously you've got Terry McLaurin, obviously who's probably one of the best receivers in the league, to be honest, and I think he's undervalued in the organisation. Another one of those players where they're almost too good for that team, really. I think on a good team, he's probably a top five receiver, but obviously he's been stuck in Washington for the past few seasons with poor quarterback play and a poor team around him. But I think they will be relying on him, to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Brian Robinson, we've obviously spoke about a little bit recently in previous podcasts, and we've said, he probably is their main standout player. Well, he is for me at least, and certainly their danger man. And when he gets running, he often leads to a touchdown. So I think if they can get him fired up and get Sam Howell fired up again, he looked pretty fired up last week, and the sacks didn't seem to affect him from the week before. So I'm sure they're going to be well up for this Bears game and looking for I'll not say an easy win, but a fairly easy win really on paper from what we've seen.
Yeah, but as we know, there's no easy wins in this league. But I think you spot on about Sam Howell, really. Obviously, he come off 4 touchdowns against the Bills, and it was a bit of a prove-it game for him last week against another strong defence in the Eagles. And he did just that. He proved himself. No interceptions, protected the ball well, ran the ball well. I think it must give the Commanders a lot of hope, seeing him bounce back from such a poor performance the week before, to dig them out of trouble. So are you taking the Commanders this week?
Yeah, I think you've got to go for the Commanders this week. I'll be shocked if the Bears get a win, but I suppose if they're fighting to save the head coach's job, if they have been complaining about the coaching, so are they going to want to save his job? I don't know, but either way, I think Commanders get this done.
Yeah, I'm with you on that ship. Unfortunately, I think the Commanders will extend to 3-2 on the season, and they've got an outside shot at maybe a playoff berth here, or a wild card at least. If obviously they're in a tough division, so they've got to win the non-divisional games more than anything, and this is one that they're going to look on the team schedule and think, right, we've got to win this one. So yeah, I am going to put them down for a win as well.
So moving on to the second London series, we see the Jags hosting the Bills. Callum, do you think the London advantage can benefit the Jags this week?
Yeah, I think it's got to benefit them somewhat, hasn't it? Obviously, they are somewhat of a home team. They'll have the fans behind them in the Tottenham Stadium. But on top of that, obviously, the Bills have travelled from America all the way over to London for this game. So will they be jet-lagged? Will they be a bit lethargic? I think they personally will be. And I think the Bills are going to really struggle in this game against the Jags. I think it's going to be a tighter affair than people are putting it down as. So yeah, I think the Jags have got a good chance this week.
Yeah, I think maybe you could argue that was the case for the Falcons as well. I mean, I think they've got a little bit further to travel, but I do think they give them enough time to sort of climatise and get used to the timings and such. So I don't know how many days they do flying before, but yeah, I'm sure that Bills team will be prepped and ready though. So.
Yeah, and obviously the Bills are coming here off a huge victory last week. Obviously it's 48-20 against one of the best teams in the NFL. Josh Allen looked back to his peak, really. 21 for 25 and 4 touchdowns and 320 yards. There was absolutely no stopping that Bills offense last week. And obviously Stephon Diggs had a huge game as well. 6 receptions, 120 yards and 3 touchdowns. So yeah, the Bills were mightily impressive last week, weren't they?
Yeah, they were phenomenal last week, and I think you called it on the pod as well, actually.
I certainly did, mate, yeah.
Yeah, fair play to you on that one. It was a good shout. Josh Allen, let's talk about Josh Allen. I mean, is he MVP worthy currently for you?
Mate, he's got to be up there, hasn't he? I gave him stick at the start of the season, but he's certainly up there now. He's got to be in the top 5, top 3, something like that, I think.
I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. To be fair, I just think he is the complete quarterback. He's got everything. He's got an absolute arm on him. He can run. He gets himself out of dangerous positions where you think he should get sacked, and he sort of sneaks through. For a big guy, he's pretty nimble. So, he's impressing me in every single area of his game. To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, he does always seem to impress at this point of the season. It's we've got to wait and see how he performs when crunch time arrives in the winter, and when he's playing those cold games in Buffalo in the playoffs or late in the season against big opposition. That's really where you earn your money, and we'll see whether he is MVP worthy then.
Yeah, I just think mentally though that performance against the Dolphins, the two teams probably going to be fighting for that first seed if they can both keep form up. So, like I said, that mental barrier that he's probably created for himself and his team now, it could be huge come the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that defense is a key part of that as well. To be honest, I mean, it's when it gets cold in Buffalo, a lot of the performance does come down to that defense and coming out on top on tight games. And obviously they lost a big part of that defense last week in two-time Pro Bowler Tre'Davious White. How do you see that affecting them this week?
Yeah, it's a bit of a rough on that because he's coming off a big game, to be fair, and he's had a good season as well. So obviously it's going to hurt them to some extent, but they've still got a lot of talent on there. They've got Matt Milano and Teron Johnson. They both picked up a forced fumble each, I think, last week, and Greg Rusey as well. He picked up 2 sacks. So it's not like they're short of talent on defense, but obviously it's going to impact them a lot.
Yeah, but they've got more talent coming back from injury. It's almost like 1 in, 1 out in Buffalo. Obviously, multiple-time Pro Bowl entry, whatever you call it. Von Miller is back on that defensive side of the ball this week. So I expect big plays out of him, disrupting that Jaguar defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be unfair if they had Tre'Davious White and Von Miller on that defense. So, yeah, like you said, 1 in, 1 out, but it's a shame, really, because he's looked phenomenal these few opening weeks.
I think it certainly has.
Just moving back over to the Jags side, though, the Jags, they improved from what we've seen, and they impressed me a bit actually against those Falcons.
Yeah, they did seem to have improved somewhat. I mean, they don't look to be as smooth on offense as the Bills, for example. I think Trevor Lawrence is still struggling to really hit his best form. But he does seem to be certainly getting back towards that. And last week he was dishing the ball out left, right, and centre. To be honest, everyone was getting a piece. And I think this game they really are relying on their star men such as Calvin Ridley and Travis Etienne to have a big game here to keep them in this. Because I think that the Bills they're going to score a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean I think Calvin Ridley picked up a touchdown, a 30-yarder against his old team, which sort of got those Jaguars going, and they put up a decent performance. Nothing brilliant or by any means, but they got the job done in front of the London fans, and they definitely had the crowd behind them.
Yeah, they certainly did, and they will do again obviously this week. But I still think the Jags are going to have to find another gear this week to take on the Bills. But they've also got a noteworthy defense itself, really. They conceded 7 points last week. They've been in a few games now where they've conceded very few points. And they've got a few first rounders on that defense. So they've got to look to stop the Bills here, and I personally think they will. I'm going to take the Jags to win this one in London, in one of the home games with other fans behind them, and I think the Jags are going to upset the favourites here. Give me the Jags.
Well, I'll just mention actually on that Jags D line, Josh Allen. Believe it or not, there is a Josh Allen. There's more than one. He picked up 3 sacks last week. I think he got a strip sack as well and ripped the ball straight off Desmond Ridder. So, like you said, there's some talent on both sides. I went up against the Bills last week, and after seeing them put that performance up against the Dolphins, even if they are travelling sort of halfway around the world, I can't go against the Bills, so I'll take the Bills to win this one.
Right then, so in the first of the 6 o'clock games, we see 2 teams who are 2-2 in the season, but both coming off very, very bad defeats. We see the New England Patriots taking on the New Orleans Saints. Minnie, how do you feel about your New Orleans Saints coming into this one?
Well, it's another disappointing week, especially when you lose to a division rival within the Bucs. So, I mean, I kind of saw it coming. I think I might have took the Saints last week, but that's because I probably went with my heart instead of my head. What did I say? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had both turned up, and they did. Although I think Mike Evans went off with an injury. You know, I'll not say too much about that, but low-key I'm buzzing. So, the Saints, I don't know. It's weird at the moment. The defense seems like it's decent, but there's just nothing going on offense at all. I mean, we've got ex-DC Dennis Allen in charge, and the way that he sets up his players and you know runs his Saints team, they are so defensive-minded in my mind. I just don't really understand what we're trying to do in terms of offense. What are your thoughts on Derek Carr so far this season? Because I'm not impressed at all.
Well, I will say, obviously, we see the Saints coming into this week, scoring 9 points last week, and the Patriots coming in, scoring 3 points last week. So there's clear offensive troubles for both teams here. But yeah, Derek Carr, I think everyone sort of knew what he were coming in. He's a bit of a system quarterback. You know, he's a type of quarterback who'll win you games when you should win games based on your team, but he's not someone who's going to transform the game and get you wins when you're the underdog sort of thing. And I think that's exactly what he's proved so far. Really, he's just been bang average. And again, yeah, like you said, with a head coach, he's very defensive minded. You know, the offense just seems very slow and methodical, and it just doesn't seem to work anymore in this league.
It sounds weird, but it just seems easy to read at the moment. I mean, we're fetching Taysom Hill in every so often, and you sort of know what he's going to do. He's just going to run the ball every single time. I think he had one pass last week, which he actually connected with. So just throw the ball, Taysom. You can do it. It's just so, honestly, I was just so stressed. And I have been for the past couple of weeks. It's just so disappointing to see. And like I said, against a divisional rival as well, a must win, really. I mean, I think they beat us the last 3, so we've lost straight three in a row to the Bucs. But I see on Twitter and stuff like that, people are blaming the offensive line. The offensive line can only, you know, withstand so much pressure and hold and protect Carr for so long that the Bucs were just blitzing, you know, every so often, and Carr had more than enough time to get the ball out of his hands, and he was well protected, but he just took too long to release the ball. So I don't know what's going on. Is that like lack of confidence, or is it just not having anyone open? I really don't know what's going on with that offense at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it as well is going to come down to play calling, because there really is no excuse for how they're playing on offense at the minute. I mean, you've got Alvin Kamara, who was back last week. He was good in the rushing game. But then he had 13 receptions, which to me just screams like they're just playing very high percentage screen passes, which, you know, you can mix in a screen every now and then and it becomes effective, but when you do it all the time, the defence is just playing the field in front of them and can limit you to small gains. But there's just no excuse. You've got Alvin Kamara, who's one of the best running backs in the league. You then got Michael Thomas, who's, you know, a multiple-time Pro Bowler. Obviously, Chris Olave, he was Rookie of the Year last year. And then Rashid. So, you know, you've got the weapons there. I just can't understand what's not clicking. And I think it just does come down to lack of creativity from the coordinators.
Yeah, I do feel like you've hit it on the head there, but I do just feel like they are generally getting a little bit unlucky as well. I mean, we had that absolute cannon from Carr who threw it sort of, 60 yards, and he got Chris Olave in the end zone, but it was just well defended. So, am I just clutching at straws here? I don't know. We don't look like we're going to score a touchdown. That's that's the worrying part right now. And as elite as the defense is, in my opinion, they can only stand so much and have so much time on the field. If the offense hasn't got the ball, then they're going to be getting tired out. So you expect mistakes and you expect to concede more points than what you put up. But we put up three field goals last week, so 9 points against a divisional rival. It's not good enough, man. It's not good enough at all.
It's not, but as I say, it's fine. I think you should have a lot of optimism coming into this week at least, because obviously I watched the Cowboys play the Patriots last week, and their offense looked even worse than yours, to be honest.
I mean, they look god awful. Probably on both sides of the ball based on what we saw against the Cowboys. Whether that's the Cowboys
to be honest,
I'm not sure, but
to be honest, the defense wasn't too bad. A lot of the Cowboys' points came from the Cowboys' defense for forcing turnovers. I mean, we had Van Der Esch return one to the house, and the Cowboys just were in good field position for most of the game, because that defense was just stopping the Patriots, and they just never got going. I mean, Mac Jones was benched partway through the game after throwing 2 interceptions, and I think his time really is up in New England. I mean, how many opportunities does he need to have before they say, right, enough's enough, the Mac Jones project is over, we're going to give someone else a try, and I think that should be what they do this week with Bailey Zappi, but Whether they will or not, obviously we don't know. But there's just so much struggles on the offense for that team.
Well, there is clearly massive struggles. I mean, I think he's probably up there with the Giants QB for worst in the league. I think they're in competition with each other. They must be. That's the only thing I can think of. Either that or it's Bill Belichick's fossil football. And for me, his days have got to be limited unless he gets that Patriots team turn around and at least it's, I don't know, 8 or 9 wins, because it's just old school. I think they need to freshen up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had all those years of success in New England with Brady, but since the Brady era, I mean, they've been pretty awful every season. So surely to God now, Bill Belichick is the seat is coming hotter underneath Bill. Like you say, his football is outdated, and it's almost like they're not drafting any big names. If you know what I mean, on offense, like there's no weapons or anything. They're not traded for anybody or drafted anyone with a big name on offense. And I think, he's trying to be too smart sometimes and avoiding the obvious option in the draft, someone less obvious, hoping he's going to look really smart. But when it comes down to it, recently, well, look at the offense. They scored 3 points last week because they've got nothing on offense.
I mean, they struggled against the Jets as well, to be fair. I think was it Christian Gonzalez they drafted in the first round this year?
Yeah, and he's out for the season now with a shoulder injury.
Yeah, so he were trying to be smart, as you said. And there's a lot missing on offense. I mean, I'm looking at that rush game as well. Zeke Elliott, 16 yards. It's not good enough for me, that.
No, everyone knew when they took Zeke in the offseason, he was a third down back. When you need a 2-yard rush or a 3rd and 1, a 4th and 1 on the goal line, something like that. That is Ezekiel Elliott's game now. He isn't this explosive back like he used to be. And obviously Ramondre Stevenson, I don't think he's anything special either. So they've just got no weapons, and it looks like a difficult season, another one for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean they've like you said, nothing really going in the rush game, and Matt Jones is proving that he's not cut out for it, or he's not good enough currently. So I can't see, like I said, I don't know, I can't see where wins are coming from. I mean, I can't even see where points are coming from, to be fair. Never mind wins, actually.
Yeah. I completely agree, to be honest. And I think this week against the Saints, it's going to be two good defenses playing against each other in a very, very low scoring game. Who are you taking, Minnie?
Well, I'm going to back the Saints again. I'm definitely going to back the Saints. I think, like you said, it's going to be a defensive slog. It could be a field goal off. It really could be a low scoring affair. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 9-6 game or a 9-3 game, because both offenses just look that poor. Either that or the Saints are going to pull it out of the bag. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm also going to take the Saints in a low scoring game. Obviously, they've got Kamara back. He's only going to get better from here on in, I think. And, I do trust Derek Carr a lot more than I do trust Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. So I'm going to take the Saints. Probably under 25 points in the game. But yeah, New Orleans come out on top.
Please, boys, get the job done. Get some touchdowns and restore the faith. Who dare? Moving over to the Titans taking on the Colts. We saw that the Titans came off a massive win last week against the Bengals in a must-win for both teams. Callum, what did you think to the Titans last week?
I mean, yeah, they looked... It's hard to know just how good they were because the Bengals were so bad. But I mean, Derrick Henry had a big game. Obviously, people have been saying his legs have gone, but he put up 122 yards and a rushing touchdown as well as a passing touchdown. So I mean, you can't fault that really. DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty big game. He had 63 yards. And yeah, they just sort of controlled the game really. The defense looked really good. Their run defense, I think, is one of the best in the league, and that's used all of that to stop what they called the Bengals last week. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the Titans. Do you know what? They're a confusing team because one week they seem brilliant, and then one week they look awful. I mean, I'll take it for the first few weeks, for example. So against the Saints in the first week, god awful. Then they play the Chargers in week 2, beat them. Then went to the Browns, but we know that the Browns are quality on defense, looked horrendous and put up something 94 total yards. And then they go and beat the Bengals 27-3. So I just can't work this Titans team out at the moment.
No, I think I think they're very one-dimensional. If they can run the ball well, they can win. And if they get ahead, they can control the game well because they've got a good defense. But obviously, as soon as they start falling behind, they don't have the weapons or ability to try and get back into the game. And I think they've just got to control. If they control the game, they can win. If not, they're trying to fight from behind. They're pretty much buggered, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree on that. I mean, Derrick Henry, you've thrown his name out already. Obviously, he's a big character and a big player. Probably the Titans' best player. And they seemed to get him firing a bit against the Bengals last week.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly was trying to get involved as much as they possibly can. I think, because he is their playmaker, and he'll be essential this week as well against the Colts. Like I said, they're a one-dimensional team. They need Derrick Henry to be running through tackles, breaking tackles left, right, and centre, and scoring touchdowns. And that's the way they've got to go about this game against the Colts, who are pretty similar, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean the Colts. I think they've been fairly impressive, to be fair, in the opening few weeks. I'm not sure what they're sat at. I think it's 2-2, and they were unlucky really not to get a win last week. I feel like it could have gone either way in overtime against the Rams, and they were down sort of 20 points at half time, and they managed to claw it back in the fourth. So again, Anthony Richardson showed big character and made some big plays in the fourth to get that comeback.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson really, really impressed me last week. He made a couple of unbelievable throws, and obviously he can move with his legs as well. He literally is a modern-day Cam Newton. And just the way he stuck in there, all the pressure on his shoulders in the fourth quarter. And he did exactly what he needed to do. He scored 15 points in the fourth quarter, took it to overtime, and then obviously they didn't get the ball back. The Rams went up there and scored a touchdown. So, who knows what would have happened if they'd held them. But, the Colts looked good once they got started last week.
Yeah, they did. Anthony Richardson, it reminds me, and I feel like you might agree on this, he reminds me of Lamar Jackson, actually, because I looked at him last week, and he picked up 50-odd yards, I think it was, with his legs, and that sort of yardage that turned second and longs, third and longs, he managed to get them downs and get the Colts further up the field, and obviously, he scored that touchdown in the fourth, and it helped him get up the field. So he was helping out his running back Zach Moss. He was sort of taking a little bit of the load as well, and a lot of fakes and stuff like that. So I think it looks like a good prospect, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously being overshadowed by C.J. Stroud, but if he wasn't in the league, C.J. Stroud, then we'd be probably screaming the praises of this man, Richardson. I think he just is lacking a few weapons on offense. Obviously, you've got Michael Pittman, who's their number one receiver, but I mean, there's no real big names in that receiving corps that he can turn to on tricky downs, and I think that's what they're missing there in Indianapolis. I think they've got the run game sorted now. The quarterback can obviously scramble and have run designs, but they seem to be lacking something in the receiving game. A bit like Tennessee, to be honest. They're a very run heavy team. It's two run heavy teams going up against each other this week. So how do you see this battle of the runners playing out?
Well, I think if Jonathan Taylor is available, because I've heard that he's returning to practice and he could be available for this game, and if he is, then I'd be tempted to take the Colts, I think. But if he's not, and more likely not, because I'm not sure what the situation is, I think you've probably got to go with that Titans team. So for me, I'll be taking the Titans.
Yeah, I do think that he is trying to force a trade away from the Colts, and I can understand why. To be honest, he wants that money, and he also wants to play on a better team that have a chance of challenging for titles. And like you, I'm going to take the Titans this week. I think, obviously, both teams have got a decent run game, but I just think that Titans have got one of the best run defenses in the league quietly. And I think they're going to do just, they'll plug the run this week and force the Colts to pass, and I think that is how they're going to beat the Colts this week. In the next matchup, we see a battle of the AFC North as the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Baltimore Ravens. Minute, you watched these games last week. Who do you see coming out on top?
Well, I mean, I was really impressed by the Ravens last week. They came up against that Browns defense, which were rated best in the league, and they tore them apart. To be fair, 28-3. Not sure how much you can read into that. They did have that backup Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming in for Deshaun Watson last minute. So I'm not sure if I think it'd have been a completely different game if Deshaun Watson played. However,
Yeah,
with that said, Lamar Jackson, just short of 80% passing completion. Didn't throw the ball that many times, to be fair. Only attempted 19, picked up 186 yards, managed 2 touchdowns, and he picked up 2 touchdowns with the legs as well. So, I really like this style of quarterback, and I do like Lamar Jackson. And I think, he's sort of grown this season. Needs to protect the ball a little bit better. We did see that last week against the Browns, so he's just got to continue doing what he's doing for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I've always sort of disliked Lamar Jackson. I don't really appreciate the running quarterback, but I've got to admit he has grown on me this season somewhat. Obviously, yeah, like you say, he's 15 for 19 last week and a total of 4 touchdowns. He is certainly making his claim for an MVP run again. And I mean, yeah, like you said, 80% completion against one of the best defenses in the league. I mean, you can't really ask for anything more than that. I think, they're coming up against a weaker defense this week and expecting to continue to perform at that high level.
Well, yeah, I was watching him last week, and even against that elite pass rush, they got some big names in that Browns defense, as we know, and he found himself buying a lot of time, and he was making good plays. He was sort of escaping out because he's nimble and agile like that. So fair play to him. I think he's been on fire this season, to be fair.
Yeah, certainly has. And then obviously on the other side, we've seen Matt Canada come under pressure this week. His job is on the line, I think, the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. I've got a stat for you, actually. The Steelers are the only team in the past 2 seasons who have not had a game with 400 or more offensive yards. No other team has less than four games with that amount of yardage. So, I mean, the Steelers fans are certainly calling for his head.
I mean, it's worrying, to be fair. Obviously, they did draft in Kenny Pickett, and for me, I think he's overrated at the moment. We've said that in the past as well. I'm not sure if he's going to actually be available for this next game. I know he picked up that knee injury. Reports suggest that it's not as serious as what they first anticipated, but they're not sure if he's actually going to be coming in. So could we see Mitch Trubisky? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, he's obviously a former first rounder as well, and I think Steelers would say, it's not the worst thing that could happen, giving someone else a try in there, and then we can sort of pinpoint whether it is poor quarterback play or whether this offensive coordinator is really holding us back, because, I've seen him, the Steelers fans are obviously saying he's such a conservative play caller, there's nothing creative there, and, that the tape completely backs that up, to be honest.
Well, it does. I think they only put up 6 points last week, so...
Yeah,
they were this
against the Texans as well. They were not a great team.
Exactly, I know the Texans who have definitely impressed, but they're nothing special. I mean, they're still crafting that young team. So, I think going into the game, you probably would have expected the Steelers to be winning this game, and I mean, they got outplayed really in every single aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they got battered, didn't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I was surprised that TJ Watt didn't manage to get to CJ Stroud once last week. But, like we said, did the Texans step up, and did that offensive line step up as well? I'm not sure how long the defense were on the pitch for, but, I was surprised that TJ Watt didn't get involved.
Yeah, I agree. And, TJ Watt is going to have to be involved this week heavily if they want any sort of chance of beating the Ravens, because outside of TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick, there's not a lot to shout about on this Steelers team. Sorry. The offense doesn't set the world to light at all. They've got two quarterbacks who are probably on the way out of the league or on the way to backup roles. Najee Harris, he's not impressed me in the slightest. I think he just looks sluggish when he plays. And obviously the one maybe bright spark is George Pickens, but again, he's not. He's a good receiver, but he's not an elite receiver yet.
No, he's definitely not at that sort of level. I think even though you've not been sort of impressed with Najee Harris, I feel like he was probably their standout player last week, and that says everything, really.
Yeah, I mean, you can stand out all you want in a loss, I guess, but you're not scoring points, you're scoring 2 field goals, so, you've got to do more, I think, and I think this week they're going to really struggle against the divisional rivals. I think the Ravens are, they're only going to get healthier, and they're actually one of the best defenses in the league as well, quietly establishing themselves as one of the best defenses in the league. Obviously, we've known for the past few decades, that's what the Ravens have been known for, their strong defenses, and again, this season, I think they're in top 5 overall defense, and whichever quarterback's in for the Steelers this week, they're going to really, really struggle.
I mean, that's scary to hear, to be fair, because they've got a lot of starters that are still not back. I I don't know how many off the top of my head now, but I know a couple of weeks ago they had 7 starters out. So, like I said, they're only going to get stronger. I thought as well that Mark Andrews, he looked good at the tight end last week. He picked up 80 odd yards and a couple of touchdowns. So there's definitely a lot of talent on that Ravens team, and for me, they're probably going to have too much for the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm also going to be taking the Raven in this one, probably by an absolute landslide again, to be honest. I mean, the points, probably the score are probably not going to be too high, because obviously the Steelers' defense is pretty good, but I just can't see the Steelers scoring, really. I think the Steelers might struggle to get more than 10 or 15 points again. So I think, yeah, the Ravens are going to blow them out.
Well, another start as well. They picked up 3 interceptions last week, the Ravens, so they did turn the ball over a lot. Granted, it was against the rookie, but if Mitch Trubisky is coming in, how much practicing has he been doing, and how many plays has he run with his team? Has he been training this week? Is that all he's done? So there's going to be a lot of pressure when he gets on that field. I know that.
Yeah, there certainly is, and nothing can prepare you for game day pressure, and I think that's where he has struggled previously when he was at the Bears. Obviously, he was good in college, but then he come into the NFL, and he couldn't deal with it on the big stage. And again, he's coming into a very poor Steelers offense. It's not like he can rely on big weapons, and I think that they're sending him to the dogs this week.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Ravens get this one quite easily, in my opinion. So this week we see the Panthers taking on the Lions. The Panthers are currently sat 0-4. Callum, do you think the Panthers should be worrying at this point?
Well, I think they are worrying. I think they're panicking a bit, to be honest. Obviously, we've seen rumours this week that they've been in contact with the Broncos to try and sign Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. We're sort of seeing what they've been doing in the previous years, where they're panicking and trying to make blockbuster trades early in the season to try and turn around and save a season and turn it into a 6-6 season sort of thing, or something to that effect, by trading for a receiver. And to be honest, I completely disagree with that. I don't think they should be panicking at this point. I think that what they should be doing is realising, right, we're in a rebuild stage. We've got a rookie quarterback. Obviously, we've got a young team around him. We never expected to have a big season this year. And just let the young rookie earn his stripes in the league, get experience, and then next season, come the off season, obviously, if you've got a poor season, you might have better draft picks. Although to be fair, they've lost a first rounder to the Bears. But give him a season first. You don't need to. Trading for Jerry Jeudy, he's not going to turn you from a 0-4 team into a Super Bowl contender. It might have you get a couple more wins, but it's only going to affect you later in the season when you don't have as good draft picks. So for me, I think they shouldn't be panicking. Just give the young quarterback a bit of time, and come the off season, then you try and turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bryce Young were out a couple of weeks ago, didn't he? After he got that concussion, so I think he's only had 3 out of the 4 weeks because backup Andy Dalton came in. So, they've drafted him. They've got to give him a chance, like you said. They're in a rebuild, so I don't know why they're putting any more pressure on themselves, and probably more pressure on Bryce Young, I'd say at the moment. They obviously feel like he needs more than what he's got, but for me, they've just got to let him practice with what he's got and move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this Panthers front office, they don't seem to have any sort of patience. They want to bloody fight over getting 6 wins a season, and I think that's why the Panthers organisation has been terrible for a long time now, because they just try and look at the short-term view of, right, we need to win a couple of games a season, and that's it. Whereas obviously you look at someone like the Texans, who are also part of a rebuild, also got a rookie quarterback, and they're just going about it in completely contrasting ways. And obviously you look at the Texans now, there's so much ambition behind the organisation. And you look at the Panthers and you think, right, they're going to be shit for the next 5 seasons probably.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints obviously play them a couple of times a year, so I know a little bit about the Panthers. I don't know why they're putting the pressure on themselves. They're already 0-4 in the season. The Bucs are sat 3-1, so I don't really see the Bucs slowing down anytime soon. So for me, they're never going to get close to the division this year. So what's the point in throwing away more picks or whatever it is that they're going to do for the trades when they've already lost their first rounder for next season?
Yeah, they lost it. They traded it to the Bears, I believe.
I think you're right. You're right on that. Yeah.
I can't exactly remember how it happened, but I just know they don't have the first rounder. Well, at least not the second overall pick currently for next season. So yeah, they've just hit the panic button too soon. I think Just go through the pain. Next season, if you want to make some blockbuster trade, you've still got a rookie quarterback on a cheap contract, so then you can look at building a team around him. Obviously, they signed Adam Thielen in the offseason. He's getting old now. They're just making some very, very weird decisions, I think, when in reality they should be making more long-term decisions, which they should do in the offseason. No one's gonna trade you any players right now at a good value. They all want more value than they're worth in season.
Yeah.
So they need to be patient, I think. But right now they don't have much hope this season.
Well, they're going into this game against the Lions, and to be honest, I can't see them getting a win out of this either. So,
no, I
don't really know where they go from here. I think from what you've said already, it sounds like they've already hit the panic button. Are they going to panic even more if they lose this week against the Lions?
Well, they will be losing this week against the Lions, I'm pretty sure. And I think then obviously you're looking at calling for people's jobs and stuff like that. But I don't really understand where they can even beat the Lions this week. The Lions last week they took the Green Bay Packers to school really. The scoreline got closer in the fourth quarter, well in the third quarter really. But at that point the game was over already. They just look so good on both sides of the ball. David Montgomery returned. He scored 3 touchdowns and 121 rushing yards. Goff looked good, minus interception. And the defense looked good. Aiden Hutchinson, another 1.5 sacks, and he's got the joint most quarterback pressures so far this season, joint with Micah Parsons and somebody else. So yeah, he's joint first in the league on pressures. So both sides of the ball are coming out trumps in this Detroit Lions team. They
really are. I've watched them a couple of times this season. One in particular when they played the Falcons, and we know what the Falcons like on the rush game, and they gave them nothing. So that's going to be completely shut down for me against the Panthers. Not that they've really got that much going on in the rush game, which for me then forces the ball into Bryce Young's hand, and they're going to make him throw. And it could be how many interceptions will they get?
Yeah, like I said, I'm taking the Lions in this one, and I think it will be by an absolute landslide again. And I don't think Bryce Young's playing particularly bad, to be honest. Last week he had 25 for 32, 204 yards. So I don't think, obviously with all the headlines are going to CJ Stroud, I don't think Bryce Young's playing particularly bad. He just doesn't have a good team around him or a good enough team around him.
Like you said, though, I think that defense is going to be too much, and I think they've got too much going on offense. Obviously, you mentioned David Montgomery, but there's Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. He had a pretty quiet game by his standards from what we've seen, and I think Sam Laporte, you mentioned on the podcast last week as well. He had a good game, to be fair.
Yeah, he's doing everything he needs to again at that tight end position, and I'm sure they'll all continue to have a field day this week with the Panthers, to be honest. Yeah, give me the Lions.
Yeah, let's hope they beat another Saints divisional rival. I wouldn't mind that at all. So, I'll be going for the Lions to probably win comfortably as well.
Right then, in the next game we have two and two teams. We have the Falcons taking on the Texans in what is a must-win game for both teams, really. Obviously the Falcons lost last week in humiliating fashion in London. Do you think Desmond Ridder's job's on the line this week?
Yeah, I do. I've listened to the Arthur Smith's interview, which his interview technique is shocking, by the way. And he's sort of just batting. Classic. He's just batting away the questions and stuff like that. But from what I gather, he's going to give Desmond Ridder another chance next week against the Texans. So I think this is probably the last chance he's going to get. He threw that pick six last week and then went straight back into the game after. And threw an interception. So teams are figuring out how to play against Desmond Ridder. They know that he likes to run the ball. And they know the Jags knew that the Falcons wanted to rush the ball a lot. So they just applied the rush pressure and made Desmond Ridder throw the ball. And what happened? He ended up throwing away 6 points. So I think we could see backup Heineke coming into the game this week. So it just depends what Ridder starts like for me.
Yeah, we know he threw 2 interceptions last week. And to be fair, all season he's not really looked impressive. Obviously, he's done well with his legs at times. But with the team he's got around him, we spoke about CJ Stroud earlier. Not CJ Stroud. The other one.
Anthony
Bryce Young earlier.
Oh, Bryce Young, sorry, yeah.
Not having the weapons around him. You look at this Atlanta Falcons team. They've got Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. all these are first round picks. You got Tyler Algier, he's a good running back. We've got weapons everywhere on this offense, so there's no real excuse for what he's doing at the minute. And yeah, I think he's got to improve. Otherwise, yeah, his job's gone, and Taylor Heineke will come in and have a go at it. Because obviously, when he was in Washington, he looked pretty good, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying he was, a brilliant quarterback by any means, but I think he's looking better. He looked better than what Desmond Ridder does right now.
I think they had a chance last week, the Falcons, to probably fetch in Taylor Heineke and just give him a chance. I mean, they were down 17, I think it was at half time. So why not just put him in the ball game? Get him used to playing again, and then potentially preparing for this week against the Texans. As I said last week, based on the PFF stats, that Desmond Ridder should have thrown more interceptions than what he already had done by now. And then they went to that Jags game and ended up throwing 2, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, that just goes to show that the stats aren't wrong; they don't lie, and the AI technology that they use nowadays, it's so like accurate and spot on, and they predicted exactly what was going to happen in this game.
Yeah, well, let's talk about one bad quarterback. On the other side, we've got CJ Stroud. Is he the rookie of the year for you so far, Manny?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's growing and improving week in, week out, to be fair. I mean, that job that Bobby Slowick's doing with not just CJ Stroud, but the whole offense, they look incredible, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't not love CJ Stroud, to be honest. He's one of them players where he's a joy to watch, really. Obviously, the only player I'd say who is possibly better than him at this point of the season in terms of the offensive rookie of the year is, of course, Puka Nacua, who is, on course to set the receiving record, single season receiving record of all wide receivers. But if it wasn't for him, you can't look past CJ Stroud, really. He's got, I think it's 6 touchdowns now, no interceptions on the season, 1,200 yards. This is the most exciting quarterback we've seen come into the league since probably Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, and he's a joy to watch, to be honest. He looks like he's been in the league for years, and yeah, in an offense that everyone was doubting before the season. There's no real weapons on this offense. No big names. They've got Tank Dell, who's of course a rookie, and Nico Collins, who sort of no one had heard about before this season. The only off-season acquisition they made that was, a big name was Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys, the tight end. But outside of that, CJ Stroud has put this team in his back and just completely brought optimism to this organisation.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they played the Steelers last week, another 0 interception game for CJ Stroud. Nico Collins, as you mentioned, he picked up 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think he picked up an average of 24 yards. Like, they were making some serious chunk plays, to be fair.
I watched it last week and I was blown away by some of the plays they were making.
Honestly, it was magic. I mean, Devil Singletary, he actually throws the touchdown to Dalton Schultz. I'm not sure if you saw that or not, but just trickery like that, we've seen it more and more often in the NFL. And do you know what? As NFL fans as a whole, me personally, I'd just love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the Patrick Mahomes effect where you can't not love Patrick Mahomes. I'm sort of getting that same feeling by CJ Stroud and this Houston Texans team. The whole rebuild process that they're in, obviously, this is the first year that they went through rebuilding. They went 3-13 last year. Obviously, they've got DeMarco Ryan, I think his name is, who was the 49ers defensive coordinator, and he's brought such good coaching and such a good culture into this Texans organisation. And for the first time in a long time, they've got a real optimism about them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've listened to other podcasts and things on Twitter and stuff, and they've said that they can tell that he's got that sort of Shanahan effect on this Texans team. And I saw on Twitter as well that someone tweeted saying this is the best coached Texans team they've probably ever seen. So that's actually coming from the fans themselves that go to the games. That, for me, just sums it up, this Texans team at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they'll be wanting to carry that momentum into this game. I think they won the last 2, I think.
Yeah, they started the season 0-2, and you thought, are they going to be shaky again? But fair play, they've turned it around, and they go into this game with momentum. I mean, they stopped the Steelers from scoring a single touchdown last week. They had good red zone defense, and I think they managed to. The only opportunity that the Steelers got, they managed to sort of shut it down.
Yeah. So do you expect to see them keep the momentum going this week?
Yeah, I fancy again this week. I think Desmond Ridder's under a lot of pressure. Whether we see Heineke or not, I'm not sure, but he's probably playing for his job at the moment, and I think that pressure's going to get to him again. And I can see the Texans just going that up a notch again, and somehow finding enough. I took them last week against the Steelers, and I'm going to take them this week again against the Falcons.
Well, I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one. After all the good things I've just said about the Texans, I just think the Falcons have lost the last two games, I believe, but they're coming into this one against the Texans, who have, if anywhere, they've struggled against the run this season so far. And obviously, we know that the Falcons have got that double-headed rushing attack of Tyler Algier and obviously the rookie Bijan Robinson, and I expect that to take over this game. To be honest, I think if the Falcons can get off to a good start, get their running game going, and establish it early, I think that we're going to be in for a high scoring game on both sides, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to take the Falcons and rely on their rushing offense to just pip this Texans team.
So this week we see one of the worst teams in football taking on one of the best teams in football, the Giants versus the Dolphins. Colin, would you agree with me that the Giants are one of the worst teams in football right now?
Yeah, I think they are one of the worst teams, probably a bottom two, bottom three team, maybe even the worst team in football right now. And it's a joy to see, really, being a Cowboys fan, all those smug Giants fans being shut up again. But it's just where do you start with how bad they are, really. You look at Daniel Jones, he's had 24 fumbles since he entered the league in 2019, and that's the most of any quarterback in that period. Obviously, they've been absolutely battered all season long, but you've actually led a game for 19 seconds total this season.
I mean,
they've been in the lead of a game for 19 seconds.
That just doesn't sound real, does it? It really doesn't. we're on week 5 now, and some of the teams that they've played against, they've not been the best teams. So that sort of tells the season at the moment. I mean, I've got a stat for you as well that they've been outscored 77-9 in first halves combined all season.
That's crazy, mate. They've scored a total of 9 points, or no, 3 points at home so far this season.
I mean, I saw.
Imagine being a New York Giants fan.
Well, I was just going to say that, to be fair, mate.
Points.
I was just going to say that I've seen some of the tweets and I've seen some of the camera angles when it sort of flashed over to them, and the face of the Giants fans, yeah, they don't look very happy at the moment.
And mate, I can't imagine a season ticket to watch the New York Giants is very cheap either in New York, in MetLife Stadium. There's no way. That's a cheap day out. So to go to 2 games and see 3 points, I'd be absolutely livid.
I mean, I think they've been. I guess they were all right last season. I think they put a few wins together and they didn't get to the playoffs. Am I right?
No, there might have been a wild card. I'm
not sure if they were a wild card or not, but I do remember watching them when they played in the London series, and I thought they were fairly well coached. I think they beat the Packers that game, but coming to this season, they just look like a completely different team. They look worse, if anything, although the coaching's not changed. So I can't really wrap my head around that.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure Brian Daboll won the Coach of the Year last year, if I'm not mistaken. And then obviously you're coming to this season, and they've been absolutely horrendous. To be honest, obviously I've been a fan of the NFL since 2016 now, so I've obviously seen the Cowboys against the Giants in that period. And for that whole period, you never actually seen the Giants as a threat to the Cowboys or the Eagles. It's always been the Eagles or the Cowboys dominating that division. And sort of like every couple of years, the Giants have a bit of hope and they think, oh, we might get the playoffs, and then they might scrape a wild card here and there. But generally speaking, it's an organisation that is not very well run. They're a lower table team, and obviously they had that bit of confidence with Brian Daboll coming in and turning it around a bit. But they paid Daniel Jones off season in probably the worst move of the entire off season, £40 million for a quarterback who everyone with a pair of eyes can tell you he isn't good enough to be in this league. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It must know someone inside Giants or inside the NFL or something to get a contract like that, because I think he's up there with one of, if not the most overrated quarterback. Probably challenges Kenny Pickett for that. So maybe they're in competition with each other for that. 'Cause I don't know. I genuinely don't know how he's still playing in that Giants team. It's crazy, and the fact that they offered him a contract as well. Like, I genuinely think I could do a better job. I think you could do a better job from what we're seeing at the moment.
Well, I think from the Giants' perspective is obviously they had that bit of an upturn last season, which obviously gives you a bit of confidence about the coach and about the quarterback. I think it was at a point where obviously they played too well to be able to draft a quarterback early, or have to trade up for one. So I thought, right, well, Daniel Jones has been quite impressive, somewhat impressive, I'll say, for the second half of the season. And they were sort of backed into that corner, and now obviously they paid him that $40 million a year, and now you almost committed to it. You can't drop him. after just paying him 40 million.
Well,
So now I've got
you're
to
not
commit
wrong.
to that
Yeah,
project.
yeah. I suppose you're right on that one. I think based on
Um,
power rankings this week, I think they've actually dropped down to the worst. I might be wrong on that, but the obviously they're somewhere down at the bottom. I might have misread that. I'm not sure. But I'd have them down there. I'm probably worse than some of the teams that have been down there for the past couple of weeks. Not sure if they're as bad as the Bears, but they're not much better than them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The only team worse than them for me is the Bears. And I mean, but even saying that, I'd definitely take Justin Fields over Daniel
I
Jones.
agree.
To be
Absolutely, yeah. I can't
but
believe we're saying
maybe it's
that.
not
To be
all.
fair,
I know, but maybe it's not all Daniel Jones' fault. I mean, obviously that offensive line is banged up. They had a makeshift one on Monday Night Football that got absolutely battered down. They gave up 11 sacks to Daniel Jones, and I think, obviously yes, the offensive line is not good because they're giving up 11 sacks. But at some point, the play calling has to change. Get it out of the hands faster. Just change something that have Daniel Jones rolling out of the pocket and getting it out faster or something. But it wasn't. He was just constantly getting hit and hit and hit and hit all night.
I can't believe 11 sacks. I mean that number doesn't sound real. That's almost an NFL record, I think. Honestly, I don't really know where the Giants go from here. I'm not sure if there is any positive news around Saquon Barkley when he can return. I'm not sure if he's rumoured to return this week or not. I'm not sure if you know any more on that.
I think there is a possibility he returns this week. But if I'm Saquon Barkley, he's been in this organisation since 2018 when he was drafted second overall, and he's had numerous injuries, and it's sort of a similar sort of thing to what happened with McCaffrey in Carolina. You get that much load in such a bad team. You're touching the ball 30 times a game, and you get hit 27 times a game. You're bound to get injuries, and he needs that trade away or in the offseason to leave the Giants, just like McCaffrey did with Carolina, and get himself on a big team, because at least when he first came into the league, he was as good as Christian McCaffrey. Whether he's now after all the injuries, we can't see that on this team. But he's a phenomenal talent, and it's hard to watch him there in New York. He deserves a trade away, really.
Yeah, I mean, other than that though, if they do lose him in the next off season, then I worry for the Giants. I just don't really see where the points are coming from. I mean, Daniel Jones was actually their leading rush last game against the Seahawks. So is he trying to do too much, or is it the fact that they just haven't got any quality there that he's having to sort of overcompensate and do that as well?
Well, I think that is the main problem. There's just no quality back there, really. They brought, obviously, Darren Waller in the offseason, the star tight end, and paid him big, I think. But again, he's not really done anything to impress, whether that's he's not been schemed open or whatever, but he's not done anything to set the world alight. And when you're one of the highest paid tight ends in the league, you should be, at least producing something more than he is right now.
Yeah. So let's flip it over to the Dolphins. I know they're playing in this game. How did you think they got on last week against the Bills?
Well, I think it was a bit of a humbling experience for the Dolphins last week. Obviously, I did call that the Bills would win this game. I didn't expect it to be by 28 points by any means, but obviously we know the Dolphins have got one of the best offenses in the league, and that's not changed. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, you can't afford to put up 48 points to allow 48 points if you want to be a Super Bowl contender, and that's what this Dolphins team are aspiring to be. So the offense wasn't terrible last week, but the defense just gave up way too many yards. Obviously, you saw Stephon Diggs score 3 touchdowns. He was 1-on-1 with the cornerback. I forgot his name.
He put him on.
He had a field day.
Put him on skates, didn't he? And just sort of blitzed him and left him for dead. I'm not sure. It was a bit of a weird player if it's the one that you're talking about, and I remember correctly.
Well, it happened on 3 different plays, the same cornerback, I'm pretty sure, and it's like, why are we not changing something here?
Yeah.
Obviously, I know they've got Jalen Ramsey to come back at some point this season, and they're going to really rely on that, when he comes back to bolster their defense. But right now, it just wasn't good enough against the Bills.
But I mean, I'm looking at that Dolphins offense currently, and after that Bills game, I mean, they were absolutely firing, best in the league going into that game. And then when they came up against a playoff worthy team, in my opinion, the Bills, they didn't look as dominant. I mean, we saw Raheem Mostert. I think he had a couple of fumbles, and that sort of obviously that gives the ball back to the Bills, and then the defense is up against it. So I'm not sure if it was probably a bit of both. Defense not fully turning up, but then there were still a lot of mistakes on offense as well.
Yeah, well, and I guess obviously the Bills have got a very good defense. They forced those mistakes. But obviously they come into this game. This is a get right game for the Dolphins, and they'll be happy that they're coming to play the Giants, because it's a game where they can exploit their weaknesses and make the most of this good offense. And again, do you think the Dolphins can put up another 70 burger this week?
I honestly, yeah, I can. To be fair, maybe not the 70 points like they did against the Broncos, but I can see them hitting high numbers. I mean, that Devon Chain, he looks insane, to be fair. And I think they picked him up in the third round. He's an absolute steal. I just can't believe it. He got another couple of touchdowns last week. Obviously, we know what Raheem Mostert's like. Maybe we just had an off game last week. And then they've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle back in the mix as well. So they've just got talent absolutely everywhere. And I can see them, putting up big numbers against Giants this week.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins this week. I think they will score at least 50, if not more. I think the offense will be on the field a lot of the time because, the Giants just won't be on the field. And the thing is, like, how do the Giants stop the Dolphins? They can't. There's no way. They don't have anything to stop the Dolphins just running through them. They're not stop them to third and they're not stop them to fourth downs and punts and whatever. It's going to be touchdown to touchdown to touchdown. So I think we're in for another big scoreline here for the Dolphins. I think they could win by 50. In the next matchup, we see the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals take on the 1-3 Arizona Cardinals. Both of the teams just go off tough losses. Obviously we've seen the Bengals struggle this season. Is it time to bench Joe Burrow and let him heal that injury?
Yeah, I think it is, to be fair. He's sort of, he's out there and he's quite clearly struggling as well. We saw that against the Titans, where they played last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, against the Titans last week. And yeah, maybe it is just time to bench him for a week or two. I'm not sure when the bye's coming up. I feel like it's the week after next. So this could be a good chance just to give him that 2-week break and hopefully get him back to full fitness when the bye's finished.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's lacking so much of his his full performance. Really, he can't really move around in the pocket. He's just stood still. And I actually saw a player last week where they're in the red zone and the Titans just give him the whole, there's a gap of about 20 yards to the open for him to just run to the end zone, knowing he couldn't take it, and forcing him to throw it. And obviously by doing that, they're obviously putting more players in the pass defense and not worried about run as much. And I think at 1-3 on the season already, your season is pretty much done statistically, and he's never going to heal properly while he's still playing. Oh, you're asking for, obviously, he got the big contract this offseason, so he's the highest paid player in the league, and you're putting that at risk every time he goes on the field.
Yeah, that's one thing that obviously the Bengals don't want. They don't want him injured, long term. So for me, it's probably a good time to rest up. It's a shame for Bengals fans because it's been so good for the last couple of years, so I imagine their expectations are quite high at the moment, but sometimes you've just got to think more of the long term rather than the short term for me.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you try and look at the positives here, if they do bench Joe Burrow or even let him play and they continue to lose, obviously, like I just said, Joe Burrow's on a huge contract now, so they've got to try and find good, cheaper players, and obviously the only way to do that really is through the draft process. So obviously having a poor season then gives you better draft picks. If they can add weapons to this already decent fundamental football team, then it could be better for the long term anyway.
Yeah, I think even there's some potentially worse news as well for Bengals that T. Higgins might not be available for this game coming up against the Cardinals as well. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals?
You know what, the Cardinals are a sleeper team for me. They're going under the radar as a lot better than what their record suggests. I believe anyway.
I'd have to agree with you on that. Yeah.
Two very close losses, and obviously they did lose in the end quite big to the 49ers, but for a while in that game they did keep it close. And again, Josh Dobbs, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The numbers are pretty good. Marquise Brown is now finding his feet in Arizona, and they're a team that are certainly not a bottom 3 team in the league. And I think they'll win more games going forward in this season. And this one is a good opportunity for them to improve on that record. If they are going to go for it this season, this is the game they've got to win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at those divisional games. Obviously, the Rams, Seahawks, and they did lose to the 49ers. Can I see them picking up wins in the division? I'm not sure. I feel like they could be close, and a lot of people, including myself, probably wrote them off in the past, and they're not actually as bad as the record suggests, or as they have been in the past couple of seasons. So like you said, I mean, this is probably, it's a great chance, especially if Joe Burrow's not playing. I mean, even if he is on the field, then they can identify what his weaknesses are, just like the Titans did, and probably capitalise on that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And obviously they've got the headache in a couple of weeks when, well, I think he's still a few weeks out actually. Kyler Murray, he will be ready in a few weeks, coming off obviously that season injury a year ago. But from my perspective, I'd be thinking, sort of stick with what we've got right now. Obviously Joshua Dobbs, yeah, he's 1-3, but his performances out there on the field are actually better than what the record suggests, really. And he's good with his legs as well, just like Kyler, but he's got a bit of a bigger frame to him, so less susceptible to injuries. I don't think he's done enough to lose that job back to Kyler, to be honest.
No, I'd have to agree with that completely. We know what Kyler's like and what he's been like for the past couple of seasons. Sort of a similar but different quarterback. And for me, I don't think Joshua Dobbs has done anything wrong. So I think he's probably earned his place in that team, and deserves to at least be allowed to stick it out for the rest of the potentially the rest of the season. I'm not sure. It all depends on how he performs over the next few weeks, I suppose.
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about Josh Dobbs, another big man they've got on offense is Zach Ertz. Obviously, we remember him from his best days in Philadelphia, and he's one man who has pretty much really disappointed me so far this season. I think he had one wide open in the end zone or something last week, and he dropped it. And I think since he's been in Arizona, his head's gone a little bit. Like, he doesn't seem to have that same ability that he had in Philadelphia. And I think if they can sort of get him going again, then this offense could start working really well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange move for him. I'm not sure what triggered that move originally, but he's
Money,
gone from
probably.
that. Well, yeah, he's gone, but he's gone from that Eagles team that had potential Super Bowl winners. Obviously, looked improve over the last few years, but have always, for me, or for as long as I've been watching, they've always been a lot better than the Cardinals. So he's put himself into a position where he's probably never even really going to touch the playoffs. Mentally, I'm not sure how that would affect him, but yeah, I agree. Probably expect a little bit more from Zach Ertz. One guy who has impressed me though, and he continued to impress last week against the Niners, is Michael Wilson. It looks like a decent receiver, and he picked up a couple of touchdowns as well. So maybe Zach Ertz is not going to be the
first two as well.
Sorry.
I think they were his first two touchdowns of his career as well.
Oh well, so that's going to be confidence for him. So I don't think Zach Ertz is going to be the main guy by any means. So I'm not really too sure how they're going to get Zach Ertz involved going forward.
Yeah, well, this week could be the week. Obviously, these are two mediocre teams going at it, and there's probably not any playoff, predictions for either of these two teams. But with that being said, we obviously still got to pick a winner in a pretty boring game, to be honest. But who are you taking in this one?
I think I'll probably go for the Cardinals. I was obviously not impressed at all by the Bengals last week. So for that reason, and the fact that Burrow is carrying that, not whether he plays or not, we're not sure yet. But for that reason, I'll go for the Cardinals to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. I'm taking the Cardinals to beat the Bengals. I don't think anyone would have said that at the start of the season.
No.
But yeah, I think this Cardinals offense is just moving a lot more smoother than the Bengals. And also, we've seen them beat the Cowboys already this season. So, the Cowboys are a lot fiercer opposition than the Bengals are right now. So yeah, give me the Cardinals to beat the Bengals.
So moving on, we see this week the Rams are taking on the Eagles. The Rams last week came off a huge overtime victory against the Colts. Callum, what were your thoughts on the Rams, and in particular Puka Nacua?
I mean, what more can be said about Puka Nacua? Again, another 9 receptions, 163 yards, and a touchdown last week. And he scored that touchdown was the touchdown in overtime to win his team the game. And I mean, I don't think I've ever been this impressed with a rookie wide receiver since probably Justin Jefferson. And obviously, Justin Jefferson is the only person ahead of Puka in terms of receiving yards this season. Both of them are probably on course to break the single-season receiving record. And the scary thing is the Rams have still got Cooper Kupp to come back from injury. So when he comes back, I'm not sure how these receptions are going to be divvied up. Everyone's going to be wide open across the field, I think.
It's crazy, really, to be fair. I mean, considering they picked him up in the 5th round as well, the draft, it's probably one of them guys that went sort of unnoticed and were really quiet to start with. And, I mean, he's put 100-plus yards up in 3 out of 4 games that they've played in this season.
Yeah, and to me, I think a lot of it is to come down to Sean McVay. He knows how to scheme the receiver open. Obviously, we saw Cooper Cup gets schemed open a lot a couple of years ago when he won Offensive Player of the Year. And it's a similar sort of situation with Puka. He's always seems to be in the right place at the right times at the minute. And then obviously for the Rams as a whole, they went off to a 20-0 lead in the first half, and then sort of took the foot off the gas really, and let the Colts come back into it. The Colts tied it in the fourth quarter, took the game to overtime, and the Rams obviously marched on the field, turned the switch back on, and scored a touchdown, and didn't give the Colts a chance. So there's a lot of positives in the game. Obviously some concerns as well coming out a bit about game management, and they can't afford to do that against a team like the Eagles this week. Certainly not.
No, I'd agree with you on that completely. I'm Sean McVay as well. I'm surprised he won't be very happy. We know what sort of high rate and his temper's like, and I can understand he'll be trying to drill this into his Rams team that if they've got a team by the throats like they did the Colts at halftime, I think, what did you say, they were up 20 points, something like that. He'll definitely be wanting them to kill them games off. I did notice that the Rams missed a lot of field goals last week, so that probably would have took the game away from the Colts, but for missing those field goals, it allowed the Colts back in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, two missed field goals last week, and that is the difference sometimes between winning and losing games, so Brett Maher has definitely got to clean that aspect of his game up.
Yeah, as well, Kyren Williams, he had a huge game, and I think that you mentioned that they were talking about taking some of the load off him, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he injured his hip during the game, and Sean McVay sort of hinted the fact after the game that we need to sort of reduce the load on this young player because they can so easily get injured in this game as a running back and touching the ball so often. So whether that's just a bluff for the opposition to not look too much into it or not, but last week he did have over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So when someone's producing them sort of numbers, you kind of don't want to take the ball off them too much, but. Well, we'll see what they do this week. Obviously, they did trade away Cam Akers, so it's whether they can get another running back in that room to take some of the load off him. And we saw Ronnie Rivers to have 47 yards last week, so I expect him to maybe have a few more carries this week.
I think probably the only concerning thing for me is Matthew Stafford. I saw that he picked up a bit of a hip injury and he sort of looked a bit fragile going into late into the fourth and into overtime as well. I know that he got the job done, but do you think that'll affect him against the Eagles next week?
Well, obviously, I'm not sure if it'll affect him personally because we know what sort of player he is. He was always banged up in his time at the Lions and he just battled through and he was just always pull things out of the bag. But it's something that, you don't want to happen going into a game against the Eagles who are, one of the best defensive lines, if not the best defensive line in football right now. And it's just, as soon as they sniff blood, it's over for you. So he really can't afford to show any of that fragileness going into this week, that for certain.
No, that pass rusher will definitely be wanting to get to him this week. It doesn't look like he's in a state to sort of run the ball himself. Not that he does very often. So I'm sure the Eagles will be wanting to get after him this week.
Yeah, I mean they look good again last week. I mean there were parts of the game where obviously Washington took them down to the wire, but the defense still looked good for the majority of the game. Obviously Jalen Carter, he's obviously on the other side of the ball who he could be on for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's up there with one of the most pressure rates in the entire league. Great in the run game. You're pairing him with Fletcher Cox in the run game, and it's almost how do you run at this Eagles team? So yeah, it's a scary thought for Matthew Stafford coming into this one.
Yeah, as well as Nicholas Morrow, he picked up 3 sacks and sort of 10 plus tackles. I think where he had an absolute monster game. He got to Sam Howell a lot, so I imagine he'll be fired up and hoping to get to Matthew Stafford as well. In terms of offense for the. Sorry, go on.
I do think that happens though. You have the big names that the commander tried to scheme away from the quarterback, but then obviously it allows people like Nicholas Morrow is not so much of a big name and he gets 3 sacks on the day. So this Eagles team has got people firing on all cylinders in every position.
Well, they have on defense and they certainly have an offense as well. They've stretched their record to 4-0. But do you think they're as good as the record suggests?
I do, and they're sort of winning ugly at the moment. I mean, obviously, 34 points against the Commanders is a lot, but obviously then they gave up 31 points, whereas in other games this season, Jalen Hurts has looked a bit hit and miss and, thrown a couple of interceptions, but at the end of the day, they keep winning. They're winning ugly as a team, and I think they are really building themselves up for the playoffs, if anything. Then obviously, the big thing for me that's impressed me is A.J. Brown. The first couple of weeks, he was quiet. Devonta Smith had a bit more of a production rate, but these last 2 weeks he's put his pink boots on and he's bloody turned that production on its head, and he's another 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. That the man's unstoppable at times.
Well, he actually saved Jalen Hurts this week. I'm going to say that he did look improved, Jalen Hurts, to me. He picked up 319 yards and a couple of touchdowns, but I did notice that AJ Brown saved him on. I feel like it was more than one occasion. It might have just been the once, but I'm not sure. Where he sort of, thrown himself up in the air, managed to somehow cling on to the ball and keep it without fumbling it or anything, anything like that. So lucky because he got double coverage on him, but you know what AJ Brown's like. He's just, he's quality really.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly is. It's such a good partnership he's got with Devonta Smith, really, because obviously AJ Brown's a big-bodied receiver. He can throw his body around and make contested catches, whereas Devonta Smith, I'm not saying he can't do that, but he's a smaller frame and he just sort of runs those quicker routes better than AJ Brown, and AJ Brown runs the sort of the more contested routes better, and it's a great partnership for that team, really.
Well, I noticed last week that the Eagles were running a lot of bubble screens, so fair play to Brian Johnson. I think they actually picked up a touchdown off a bubble screen play, so granted, he did have blockers going forward, but smart from Jalen to notice that, and he was 1-on-1, nipped inside, and then got himself into the end zone. You mentioned Devonta Smith, and DeAndre Smith had a quiet but decent game as well. He picked up a touchdown and 56 rushing yards, so they've got it on reception on receptions and rushing as well. There's so much talent. Yeah,
it's a very scary team because you can't really pinpoint a weakness at any point on the team. Really, they've got statistically the best offensive line in the league, a top 3 defensive line in the league, and then obviously you've got Darius Slay on the outside as well, and it's like, how do you stop and how do you defeat this Eagles team? Obviously that's what the Rams have got to figure out this week, and I'm sure Sean McVay has been working tirelessly to try and come up with a plan to do just that.
Well, even if the Rams do look to force them into field goals, Jake Elliott, he looked reliable. I don't actually think he missed, and he scored it in overtime for the Eagles. So they're going to get points against you regardless of what you do for me, unless Sean McVay can draft up something incredible.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to be taking Eagles in this one. I think they extend their record to 5-0. Again, I think the Rams, they're a potential wild card team, but against a team like the Eagles, they're not in the same sort of league as them, to be honest, at the moment. So I'm going to have to take the Eagles on this.
Yeah, I'll be going for the Eagles to win this one as well.
In the next game, we have the Dog Bowl, the worst game of the week. We see the New York Jets take on the Denver Broncos. It has 2 bottom 5 teams in the league. Probably a must-win for both of them. But Manny, do you think it's a must-win game for Zach Wilson in his career?
I think it is, and it's crazy that we're saying that it's the Jets are a bottom 5 team, because before the season, we probably had them going to the playoffs with some of the signings that they got. I think the Jets do look improved compared to the Patriots. Not that they couldn't possibly improve, but I'll give you an interesting stat that Zach Wilson is the only ever quarterback to outperform Patrick Mahomes in any college or NFL football game. So if that's out to go off, that would suggest that it should be good for this Broncos game as well. But it's the Jets, so we just don't know which way this game is going to go. But yeah, I do think it's a must-win for the Jets. I imagine you feel the same way.
Yeah, we're seeing this new era of Zach Wilson, the headbandless Zach Wilson, and is this the one we've been waiting for the whole time? That's the question, I suppose. And yeah, for the Jets, obviously, if they've got any sort of ambitions this season, they've got to be winning this game. Obviously, they are 1-3 at the moment. They're in probably the most difficult division in football. Even winning this game, it's going to be very, very tough to get to the playoffs or anything. But just for the sake of this team, for the sake of this head coach, and for the sake of Zach Wilson, they've got to win this game. Obviously, we've heard rumours that they're bringing in Trevor Siemian to replace Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson did look improved last week. 28-39, 2 touchdowns and 245 yards. But then he did all that, and then he fumbled the ball. Did he fumble the ball, I think? At the end of that, in that comeback?
Yeah, I feel like he did fumble the ball, and for the Chiefs to inevitably win the game.
Yeah, the Chiefs got the ball back, and then they closed out the game. I'm pretty sure they held the ball for fucking like 6 or 7 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Well, the game management was phenomenal, to be fair, from the Chiefs, and that's that got them the win in the end, to be fair. The Jets matched them fairly well, I thought, throughout. You got some Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson. They put up decent numbers. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook didn't look bad either. So they did look improved for me since playing the Patriots, which, I feel like we both completely ripped the Jets off and they were going to get blown out pretty much. Or they'd score very lowly against the Chiefs, but it was much closer than what we anticipated.
Yeah, and you saw obviously Zach Wilson played well until the fumble, and then obviously you saw all his teammates surrounding him, trying to pick him up, and the look on his face, he just looked heartbroken to look a man shaking of confidence. He looked like he had nothing left to give, and it really worries me. It was hard to watch, to be honest. Not like seeing that young player like that just broken by the fans, by the media, by his own demons probably. With how bad he has been playing, and I hope it doesn't really affect him too much into this game. He must come into this one with a bit of hope that he can turn over the Broncos, and hopefully have the team behind him again this week. But obviously, the best players they don't seem to be affected by confidence, even when they're playing bad. They don't seem to have any confidence issues like Patrick Mahomes, for example. Whereas obviously players that do play on confidence, you are susceptible to up and down troughs throughout the career, and I think that's what Zach Wilson's career might end up being if he has a career.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a chance, hasn't he, now to sort of prove himself and show what he's worth. Prove the haters wrong, I guess. He didn't do that against the Patriots. It were close against the Chiefs, but you just feel like this Broncos game it's a must win for him.
Yeah, certainly is. And then on the other side of the ball, obviously you get the Broncos who come back from a 21-point deficit. And Russell Wilson, by the way, who obviously got so much hate last season, just as Zach Wilson is this year. But this year he's actually playing well despite their 1-3 record. I saw yesterday people saying how well he's actually playing. He could be a candidate for comeback player of the year because he has actually been playing that well and he's just been let down by the worst defense in football right now.
Yeah.
And the stats back it up.
They do. I mean, they found themselves 27-0 down, I think it were at half-time. So, fair play to Russell Wilson. He got the march in the second half. I think in the fourth quarter they went 17 points unanswered. So, he's doing his best, but he's also worth a lot of money. So that's what we should, that's what we expect from him. I think he went 223 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton, I mentioned him last week. He didn't look too bad either. I think you mentioned earlier that he could be getting traded away though.
Yeah, well, it's been interesting, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. I think it's because, obviously, if the Broncos were to lose this game, the season is effectively over, and obviously they'll want some trade compensation for these big name players, see if they've got nothing else to play for. So again, this is definitely a must-win game for the Broncos if they want anything to happen this season and to keep their big players.
Yeah, I just think in this game though, I think the Jets defense will stand up strong as well, and I expect them to outperform the Broncos defense for sure, and I think just having that little bit more quality on that side of the ball allows Zach Wilson to get the ball and have a chance of winning this game. So for that reason, I feel like I'm going to say that I'm going to go for the Jets.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said there. I think this game is going to come down to the quality of the defense, and obviously we think the Jets are probably a top 7, top 8 defense in the league, and in contrast, the Broncos have been statistically the worst defense in the league. And I think by that maths, Jets will turn over, get the ball back more often and give Zach Wilson more opportunities. So I am also taking the New York Jets in this one.
So moving over to the Chiefs taking on the Vikings. Callum, the Chiefs looked shaky last week. Did the Jets deserve to win that game?
Well, you could argue that the Jets certainly could have won that game. People, including myself, kind of think that the referees might have been in favour of Kansas City there. Patrick Mahomes threw his 3rd interception of that game to Sauce Gardner, and then the flag got through for holding, I think it was, and it was a very, very suspicious call, if I'm honest. It didn't really look like much of a hold to me. But throughout the game, there was other decisions as well that went in favour of the Chiefs, and I guess that's what happens when you're a reigning Super Bowl champion and you've got all these big names. You do kind of get the benefits of the officials, but they beat the Jets by 3 points last week, which is got to be a concern for this Kansas City organisation against one of the worst teams in football. They didn't look good. Patrick Mahomes threw 2, arguably 3 interceptions, and they left a lot to be desired last week. Obviously, to come into this game against the Vikings, who again aren't great, but you never know what Vikings are going to turn up. So it should be an interesting game next week.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Chiefs, like I said, they have looked a bit shaky in most of the games that they played, barring the Bears one. But I see them going up against Vikings this week. They're extremely weak to the rush. Can we see people like Isaiah Pacheco absolutely running through this Vikings defense?
Well, yeah, like you say, Isaiah Pacheco was one of the best players on that team last week. He had 115 rushing yards and a touchdown, and then he had a further 43 receiving yards, and he was running angry last week. I'm saying he was running angry. Obviously, we've all heard the story behind Pacheco and the hardships he's been through in his life, and every time he steps on the field, it looks like he's just running angry, running through demons. And again, I think that could show up again this week against a very, very lackluster and poor Vikings defense.
Well, sometimes you need that. Some players that's the buzz that they get when they're angry. They tend to play better. I expect a little bit more from Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. I feel like he's been having a bit of a quiet season, but I looked at him last season. Maybe it's the season before. I'm not sure now. And he was the main guy at the Chiefs, but he seems to have gone quiet. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think it was part way through last season. Pacheco sort of taking more of the load off of Edwards-Helaire, and he's continued to stay that way. Edwards-Helaire does come in certain points and offers a good bit of productivity, but I think Pacheco is just the number one guy there. But I think both of them could have a big day this Sunday against the Vikings.
I'm sure another man looking to have a big day will be Travis Kelce and all. He'll be looking to make a swift impact on the game, don't you think?
I'm honestly sick of all the Swiftie videos and jokes and everything now. It's been on it for 2 weeks, and all I can see every time the Chiefs score a touchdown, it cuts to Taylor Swift in the blue box. Ryan Reynolds was next to her, and now everyone's only bothered about Taylor Swift. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were sat next to her as if they were just nobodies.
Oh no, it gets to you. I mean, that's what fuels me, and that's why I keep doing it.
I thought Ryan Reynolds is a much bigger celebrity than Taylor Swift, but apparently I'm wrong.
No, he's doing something dodgy with Wrexham in English football now. We don't talk English football on this podcast. We're only bothered about the NFL and pop stars, I think.
Yeah. Well, moving on from pop stars, we're looking at this Vikings team. Obviously, Kirk Cousins last week, he was poor, and they were fortunate to beat the Panthers last week. I mean, he threw a pick six on the Panthers goal line. Again, two interceptions for Kirk Cousins. He's obviously third in the league in passing yards, bloody hell. But he's not on the best season.
No, he's certainly not. I mean, the Vikings have actually got the most turnovers in the league. They've got 11 total turnovers, which puts them at -8 in terms of what they've turned over and what they've recovered. So I thought that were an interesting start. And they only turned the ball over 8 times, I think it was last year, or maybe they only fumbled the ball 8 times. I'm not quite sure, but either way, they've already beat that record this season. We're only on week 5, so I don't really understand what's going on. You mentioned that he threw a pick six. I think he threw 2 interceptions last week actually. But yeah, we did say that they've got to slow down with the turnovers. And when they're coming up against teams like the Chiefs, then for me the Chiefs will take complete sort of, I can't think of the word. They'll.
I know what you mean. I can't remember the word myself, but they'll take advantage of it.
Well, they'll capitalise. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They'll capitalise on those Vikings' mistakes. And if they do it this week, then the Chiefs are just going to take advantage and run away with the game for me.
Yeah, but it's just such a naive thing to be talking about in the NFL, really. Turnovers and fumbles not as much turnovers, but certainly fumbles, which we've seen Alexander Mattison do a lot this season and cost his team games. But it's crazy because his productivity outside of the fumbles is so good. Like last week, had another 95 yards, and if they can just wipe out these fumbles, their record will probably look a lot healthier than it does right now. Which is why I feel like there's a better fundamental team under the record for the Vikings. And obviously, we saw how good they were last season. That doesn't just disappear in the blink of an eye. Obviously, Justin Jefferson still leads the league, and he is the best receiver in the league. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a lot of weapons here, and I think they can cause the Chiefs some problems this week.
Yeah, I mean they've obviously got the quality as well, and they added Cam Akers in. Not sure how he played last week. Maybe you can give me a little bit more info on that.
To be honest, I didn't see much of him, to be honest. I mean, he has rushed 5 times for 40 yards, so his average carry was good, but maybe it's something they need to work into this game and take some of the pressure off Mattison, who's obviously shook for confidence at the moment, and let Cam Akers take some of that load off him.
Yeah, I agree. Do you see a potential upset here then? Do you see the Vikings beating the Chiefs?
I do see a potential upset, to be honest. I'm not sure if I dare pick the Vikings right now.
I mean, the season's on the line, is it not? The 1-3. They would be 1-4 if they lost this game.
Yeah, the season is on the line. You're not wrong there, but it's a big feat to overcome the Chiefs. It's a good defense. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Vikings to beat the Chiefs this week. in a wild upset. I just think this offense is going to click, the defense is going to click, and they're going to come out on top against the Chiefs and shock the world.
Well, I would be very, very surprised if the Chiefs lose this game, but I've had some dodgy calls this year. You've not done bad. Probably not. I'm going to say you're not done as good as me, but obviously I'm going to say that.
Oh, 14-2 last week.
Oh, well, you could be right. But for me, Andy Reid, Chiefs, Mahomes gets back to firing, and they beat this Vikings team.
Go Swifties. Moving on then to Sunday Night Football, we have the game of the week. The San Francisco 49ers take on the Dallas Cowboys, two of the best teams in football right now. And one man who's impressed me throughout the season so far is Christian McCaffrey. I think he's one of the best. Is he MVP? Is he an MVP candidate right now?
I think he's got to be in with a shout. I mean, I'm sick of seeing these quarterbacks win it when there's people like Christian McCaffrey around, and he's putting up touchdowns and multiple touchdowns every single game. He put up 4 last week, 4 touchdowns against the Cardinals, and he had 20 carries for 106 yards. And I think he picked up 70 plus yards in the reception game as well. So the guy's insane. I mean, he can do everything. I feel like he needs a drugs test, if I'm honest.
You know what? I just can't believe he's white. He must be the best white man to play non-quarterback ever in the history of the league.
You're not wrong.
He's just an animal.
Agree. He's got to be in the MVP talks.
Mate, he has to, because he's got 4 touchdowns in a game. Most quarterbacks don't throw for 4 touchdowns in the game. So how can he not be in the conversation? If he's contributing more yards and touchdowns than quarterbacks, then he's in the picture, isn't he?
Absolutely. What was that you were telling me about the other day with CMC? That I think he'd scored a touchdown every single game, and if you'd have put X amount on, you'd be making thousands by now, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So not excluding week 4, the previous 12 weeks he scored a touchdown in every single week. So if you'd have put $100 on him to score a touchdown the first week and then rolled the winnings for 12 weeks, you'd be on 78 grand. And then obviously last week he scored again. So now I don't know what that'd be. 150 grand probably, something like that.
Well, I must admit I had to get on it this week because I'm sick and tired of seeing him score touchdowns, and I'm not getting any benefit myself. But I've got good friends who are Niners fans, and they're taking a lot of joy out of it. So I wanted a little bit of joy out of CMC scoring touchdowns.
I guarantee if I back him to score a touchdown this week, he will not score. It's just guaranteed.
Well, that could be
I feel like I'm too late to party now.
That could be the way that we have to slow the Niners down then. And they are playing your Cowboys, so maybe that would be smart.
It could be smart, yeah, but the problem is I do think the 49ers are going to come out on top on this one, I'm not going to lie. The Dallas run defense is been the weak spot this season. We saw the Arizona Cardinals just run through them like they're not there and give up big chunk plays to their receivers, and that is the exact formula that the 49ers employ. You've got Christian McCaffrey who just eats up yards on the ground through massive gaps from one of the best offensive lines in the league, and then they take big chunk plays down the field to Brandon Ayuk or go on, help me out, what's he called? Deebo Samuel.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Is Deebo? Yeah, I still think Deebo's completely fit, isn't he? I think he's playing.
I think he's playing. Yeah, I just think he's got a few niggly injuries.
Yeah, I didn't see him too much involved against the Cardinals, so that was my only concern. But maybe they're saving him for this Cowboys game.
Maybe so. Yeah, I mean they have been our bogey team for the past last 2 years, I think, in the playoffs, and I just can't see that altering this week. I mean, the Cowboys were impressive last week in aspects against the Patriots, but again, it's the Patriots. And again, it was the defense turning possessions into points, really. You saw Darren Blandy got 2 interceptions, one of which was a pick 6. You had Leighton Vander Esch recover a fumble for a touchdown, so that's 14 points on the defensive side of the ball. And every time that the Cowboys, for the most part, were getting good field position from the defense. And I think they had 4 red zone. I think they had 4 red zone appearances, or whatever the word is, and they didn't score from one of them last week. So the red zone struggles are continuing, it would seem, and that is not something you want to hear going against the 49ers.
It isn't. No, obviously it's not. But defense does win championships. That's a fact. But the Niners have got a good defense as well. So for me, Dak Prescott, who looked improved, to be fair, last week for me. I think he, 250 plus yards. He picked up a touchdown. Like you said, there wasn't too much going in the red zone. It was mostly the defense doing the work. But do you see him doing the same job against the Niners?
Well, I mean, the thing is, in the open field up to the red zone, the offense looks like it's cooking. It's moving well. They're taking taking the plays methodically down the field, and then they get to the red zone and it's like everything just dies to death. I don't understand. I don't really know why it's happening. But when we get to the red zone, we just we can't call a good play. We can't call a good play. We can't get open. We can't pass. We can't run. We can't do anything. We're just stuck.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure what's going on there. Whether it's a coaching thing and they just need to draw stuff up for those final plays. But the fact that you're getting in them positions is good, and it's better than a lot of other teams as well. So I think Mike McCarthy is sort of putting a little bit more trickery in there. You said that 2-pointer, that fake what was it, a fake PAT that you had last week?
A fake field goal. I mean, they must have worked it in the week and watched the Patriots when they did the field goal block the other week, and as they said, right, if the Patriots show this formation, we're going to fake it, and that's exactly what they did. They called it on the field, right? They're trying to block the field goal. We're going to fake it and roll out to the right and pass the tight end or whatever. I don't even know who he is. I don't even know who he is. That's how important he is. But yeah. There is more trickery, and the offense is improving slowly but surely. Jake Ferguson had a big game last week. He's starting to look like tight end number one. Michael Gallup the last 2 weeks, he's been improved. Jalen Tolbert impressed me last week, and also Brandon Cooks had a few touches. So the offense is certainly getting better, but I feel like the 49ers might have just come a couple of weeks too early for the Cowboys, and I am taking the 49ers in this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you on that one. I think the Niners are probably a couple of weeks too early. It's a shame, really, that's how the schedule works. But I think Christian McCaffrey is going to continue cooking, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a touchdown this week.
Yeah, there's your safe bet. Christian McCaffrey touchdown and over 100 yards. It's happening easily. Might happen in the first half.
Well, I'll certainly be having Christian McCaffrey to score. Just going to keep rolling now that you've show me that monster bet.
Well, until Micah Parsons gets to him and breaks his legs in the first quarter.
Well, that'd be one way of stopping him. Probably the only way of stopping him.
The Lions got to eat.
Moving on to the final game of the week, we see the Packers taking on the Raiders. Both coming off disappointing losses. But Callum, do you think Josh McDaniels is on the hot seat?
Oh, I think he's got to be on the hot seat at this point in time. He obviously got brought into this Vegas organisation to turn the fortunes around. But so far, obviously, the start of the season 1-3 in a horrendous start, and overall in his head coaching career is 18-30. And I can't see a way that this Raiders team is moving in the right direction. To be honest, can you?
No, I can't. And they're obviously struggling. They've lost the starting quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. We're not sure when he's back. I didn't see too much from Aidan O'Connell. Do you think that he performed better than what Jimmy G did?
No, I don't think he did it. I don't think it was close either, obviously. I think he's obviously got drafted in the 4th round, I think it was, and he seems to have been thrown in a bit too soon, to be honest. I know it wasn't by choice, but he certainly isn't ready. He threw an interception. I think it was 2 fumbles he had in the game. So, yeah, he's not really ready at this moment in time anyway.
I know, and that's against the Chargers defense as well. As they've not really been brilliant all season. I don't really know where the wins are going to come from the Raiders. I'm not sure if they're going to have enough to beat this Packers team. I'm looking at the game against the Chargers last week, and I see that Josh Jacobs has improved. Davante Adams, he obviously went off with that shoulder injury, but I think he returned to the game. So I'm not sure if he's going to be questionable or if he is going to be fit to play or not.
Yeah, and I think Josh Jacobs has improved, but again, like you said, it's against one of the worst defenses in the league at the minute. And obviously we know Davante Adams is a rare bright spark on that team. He's one of the best receivers in football, and he's one of the players you really feel sorry for at this moment in time. Obviously, he's got the quality to be a Super Bowl winner, but instead he's stuck here in this very poor team at the moment, and he's just carrying them. But he's also risking injury week in, week out because he's under. He gets thrown into the double or triple coverage.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. I think we said it on the pod last week as well that he's gone to the Raiders, and I don't see them getting anywhere close to the playoffs. Never mind Super Bowl contention. So I don't really see where Davante Adams should go from here. I'm not sure how long's left on his contract. What's he been there for, a year or two now?
Yeah, I think it's his second season. I think. But I mean, if they lose this game, they drop to 1-4. Do they look at trading Adams and getting some draft compensation for him? Obviously, then commit to a rebuild.
Yeah, I think that's probably the route that I'd have to take, because I just can't see them or Davante Adams carrying them through the season and getting them anywhere close. So I think you're probably right there.
I mean, could you imagine if Davante Adams, for example, gets traded to the Chiefs or something like that, and then obviously that's their struggles are fixed then, and the Chiefs are all of a sudden the best team in football again.
Could be a perfect fit, to be honest. Really could be. I think he'd link up so well with Mahomes, and there's a lot going on that offense already, and just adding Davante Adams into it, I think that probably puts them back in Super Bowl contention.
Yeah, and then obviously on the other side of the football, another very good player, one of the best in the league so far this season, Max Crosby. He's up there with Micah Parsons and the other big names in the rushing game. He had another 2 sacks last week. He's honestly carrying this team on this defense on his back, really. So I expect another big game from him if they want to disrupt the Packers and come out with a victory here.
I think he just looks levels above Max Crosby. It's weird. It's like he's playing with college defenders. It's like an NFL player playing in college. He just seems so much better than them. I don't know if it's just like his mentality or if it's actual physical quality or not. But genuinely, I was watching them. I saw the first half against the Chargers last week, and he's the only one that looks like he's busting his balls off to try and get to Herbert, and he got there twice, like you said. So, do you see him getting to Jordan Love this week?
Well, I think he's coming up against one of the best O-lines in football, but they have got some injuries on that O-line as well. So he probably is going to get to the quarterback a few times. Well, at least one time this week. He could be another one if they do lose this game. He could be on the trading blocks. I mean, he's his value's been at its absolute peak right now. So if they're going to cash in, it needs to be done now.
So we could we potentially see Adams and Crosby going as a package or separate trades, whichever way. I think that's probably the way that the Raiders are going to have to go. Going into this game against the Packers, I don't see them. I don't think I see the Raiders winning this at all.
No, and it's weird because obviously we see the Packers, who just come off a very disappointing loss to the Lions. Obviously, they just snuck away with a win against the Saints the week before in a game which they didn't deserve to win. Last week, Jordan Love threw 2 interceptions, and the team just, it didn't look good at all. Like, you watched the game, and it just with the eye test, you could see they just weren't good. They got dominated all game. And even having said that though, you're still expecting the Packers to dominate this game. It's like it just shows how far the Raiders have fallen.
The levels are weird, aren't they, at the moment? I thought they were closer, to be fair, but I feel like some teams are starting to slip further and further away, and Raiders are one of them. Good news for Packers fans this week is that Christian Watson, he featured a little bit last week against the Lions. Hoping he's back to full fitness because I think he'll link up well with Jordan Love.
Yeah, and I think, if they do get him back and he's at full fitness, obviously you got him we saw how good he was last season. We thought he was going to be a breakout star this year, and he obviously still can be. But obviously Romeo Doubs has really stepped up while he's been away. He had another 9 receptions for 95 yards last week. He is, last season was his rookie year. Obviously Christian Watson also his rookie year, but Watson obviously stepped up in his first year, and Doubs was a bit quiet. This year it's almost found like Doubs has found another level to his game. And he does seem impressive now, so that could be a very good 1-2 punch in the receiving game.
Yeah, and then they've got Jayden Reed as well to add into that. Whether he'll feature that much now Christian Watson's back, I'm not sure. He put up decent numbers. They don't really seem to have that much going in the run game, so I feel like they're going to, heavily rely on these guys to beat this Raiders team.
Yeah, we know Aaron Jones. He started the season well. He had a bit of an injury, I believe. And then last week he obviously came up against the Lions, who were top 3 defense, and obviously didn't get anything going, which is, it could be understandable to a degree. Obviously against the Raiders team, we're not as good. We could maybe see him get him going again. But the Packers have got a lot of weapons here, a lot of young weapons as well at that. And I think the Packers are in a rebuild phase. They understand that, and then any wins a bonus. But I think this game they'll be penciled in for a victory here.
Yeah, I think it's probably it's a must win for both teams, but I'd say even more the Packers now. They're chasing down the Lions after losing to them last week. They don't want to, fall too far behind them in the division because the Lions look really good. So Packers have got to get wins on the board, and they'll be looking at the schedule and thinking this is one that we've got to win.
Well, yeah, I think that division as well that they're in is kind of a wide open division. Obviously the Bears, expect to be the worst team, but I know the Vikings have started poorly, but there's wins to be had by any team in that division really to force their hand into the playoffs. And they're gonna have to win those divisional games, I think, if they do want a chance.
Yeah, they're gonna have big divisional games coming up soon, which I see as much tougher games. Maybe excepting the Bears, that could probably be on level with this game. But when they've got the Vikings and then they're playing the Lions again, those are much tougher opponents as we've seen already compared to this Raiders team. So for that reason, I'm going to be going for the Packers to win this week.
Yeah, I'm also going to go for the Packers. I think it will be a tighter game than we've probably given an inkling at this week. I do think it'll be close because I think both teams are poor. I think the defense, though, on both sides will be strong, and I think it'll be quite low scoring as well. But yeah, certainly give me the Packers in this one to get back to winning ways.
Thank you for watching this episode of the NFL Abroad podcast.
If you have enjoyed, then please feel free to like and follow for more. New episodes are released every Thursdays.